After, I think we may as well get started. So we'll do like the little clapboard thing for them. All right, everybody, welcome to the March 5th edition of the Technical Advisory Council of the Confidential Computing Consortium. As always, we are an open and collaborative bunch. Everybody is welcome to contribute constructively, as you are welcome to constructively contribute to any of our projects and our other SIGs. Since we've got different companies here, we all have to abide by antitrust policies. And so you can read more about that at linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. Today, we have an update from Mike Bartok on NIST 8320 and a little call to action there.
Last time, or have we got that again?
We've got that again, Mike.
Oh, even more. That's very exciting. I hadn't realized. I apologize. Wow.
Yeah. We've got multiple Mike topics today. Heated Mike topics. We are rich with mics.
Or possibly Mike poor, but I know what you mean. That's fine.
Alec.
Yeah, just a real lightning quick update. Speaking of NIST, also, I just wanted to let everybody know that I was able to reach the working group convener for ISO, and they're having, fortuitously, they're having a meeting that involves confidential computing next week. If I can figure out how to get the standard time, daylight savings time math sorted out, I'm supposed to join. I think it's like at 3 a.m. East Coast time to talk about confidential computing with those folks and meet the working group and stuff. So I'm happy to report that all that liaisonship got approved.
If you're not sure, start at 2 and expect it to end start at 4. So you get a nice block at night. I mean, good for you.
Exactly that.
Well, thanks for staying up late or getting up early. I'm not sure which it'll be for you, but that's great.
I'll let you guys know in a couple of weeks how that goes. It's just going to be the first working group. There's a couple of hours.
So good that you're involved. Thank you, Alec. Yeah, so we look forward to. If you could provide minutes of that we can share and you can share in this, would be brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Okay, so after we hear on NIST 8320, then we're going to check in on the blueprint documents or these guidance documents that we've created. I've had one in mind for a while, so I've written that up and sent it to the list, and I see some of you have provided feedback, which I appreciate. And then we will get into the main event, which is the finalizing the NIST RFI that we've been working on for the last few weeks. Those are the main topics for today. This is actually a leftover from last time.
Well, we should just give some information about that actually. So let's leave that.
Got that in the announcements.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Fantastic.
Okay. Any other topics that we will discuss today?
Maybe not necessarily for today, but I would like to circle back to Nellie's paper that she submitted on the definition, sort of like she had a FIPS 140-2 sort of levels of confidentiality proposal. I'd love to kind of get that going.
Yeah, Alec, what I would propose we do is a joint. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that because I want to do it in 2 places. I want to make sure that the regs and standards folks also have a conversation about that. I think the next meeting for that is Monday. So let's make sure that if any of us have interest in that, or our colleagues do, that someone attends that thing on Monday. Remember, it's more of a non-technical meeting, but I think attacking it from both directions makes a lot of sense. So we can inform them, or they can inform us. But I absolutely agree that we should be looking at that too.
Okay. Yeah, I think we will definitely want to take a look at that when the time is right. All right, let's see who we have today. I know I saw Nathaniel already. Thank you for joining, Nathaniel, and Renee and Keith. Thank you both for joining. Do we have Youngjin Wu? Today is his day to co-chair, and I was not able to reach him, so I don't know if he is off on vacation.
Oh, is it Chinese New Year? Yeah, about now. Is that
was,
past? Is it gone?
2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay, that long ago. Sorry, I'd lost track.
Yep.
Sorry.
Nope, but that thought had occurred to me too, so definitely valid. Scott, I saw as well. Thank you for joining, Scott. We have Ahmed from Meta. All right, no Meta and no Huawei. On to Microsoft. Alec, thank you for joining. Do we have Simon as well? We do.
We do.
Thank you, Simon. Do we have Fritz? Fritz, thanks for joining. And I know Ming Shen mentioned that he would be here, and he is. Thanks for joining, Ming Shen. And then I think we are still without Bob. All right, we are Bobless today. So we're down.
Just a note on that. I have been in contact with him, and I hope to speak to him fairly soon about trying to revive the participation there.
Yeah, sort of an off-the-cuff thought, but I wonder if we have like a separate category for companies that would like to support the CCC but can't staff the CCC. Something to think about.
Interesting question. Yeah. I don't know.
All right, now if today is your first time here and you would like to introduce yourself to the group, we'd love to know how you like to be addressed, where you're joining from, and how it is that you've come to be interested in confidential computing. Sometimes it takes a little courage to come off of mute, but everybody here is very collegial, so feel free to do that.
Is there any names you don't recognize?
There are, but I won't call people out if they're on.
No, of course not. We shouldn't force them to do so, but
wanted to leave some space for people. But if you would like to introduce yourself as we go, you are welcome to do that. And if you prefer to sit quietly and observe, that is fine as well. All right, last meeting, we got an update on OpenVMM from Caroline. And then we checked in on the guidance documents. And then Fritz asked us whether we wanted to continue to do tech talks and what kind of tech talks we would like to hear in the TAC.
Oh, we had a quick discussion last week, right? I said old business, sorry. I saw it was like the plans for today. Sorry.
Yeah. So do you want to kind of recap the feedback that you heard?
No, everyone liked it apparently, and we will keep doing them.
Yep, that is the feedback that I remember as well. And speaking of old business and remembering what we did, in the governance repo, usually within a couple days after every meeting, the meeting minutes go up. And what I am asking the co-chairs to do is to look at the last week's session to make sure that they kind of have the context for that last meeting as we go in to prepare for the next one. What we used to do in the past is all TAC members reviewed the minutes, and we would spend the first part of the meeting reviewing minutes, but that feels like an inefficient use of everybody's time. So I just want to make sure that we're all taking some piece of that over the course of the year. But we don't need to spend all of the TAC time kind of reviewing what had been going on. And then the last couple things, we went through the RFI that we're about to go through in a little bit here. And then there was a separate RFI from the UK, and I think I put that on announcements here. So a smaller group got together because there was a very tight timeline for that. So we had Nelly and Mike kind of took the lead for that. They looped in Paul O'Neill from Intel. So we had sort of 3 different reviewers, and then I got looped in. So I think there was still a broad view across the consortium, but we didn't get like the full kind of open field.
Yeah, I'd go further than that. I'd point out that we used where we could material from the NIST RFI work that we've already been doing. So again, we were trying to make sure that we're doing that. And I have to give Nelly a huge amount of credit because she did most of that work. So a thank you to her. I'd like to record that. But But yeah, so we there just wasn't time to do a full process, but we were absolutely as careful as we could, and we removed some contentious statements and smoothed things out, and I think it's a good response. So that's good. We should probably make that available for members to see. And in fact, we should make it available probably on the website generally. I don't think there's any reason not to. Do you, Dan?
No, I think we've got space that we don't use often enough in kind of the
Yeah.
blog news content. So
Well, let's put that down as a request for the PMO folks to help us with to add that document to the website.
yeah, and I like the clarification that we were able to make use of text that had already been agreed.
Yeah.
And really agreed in some of these other documents. So that was a good quick turn. Then kind of going back to the top of the announcements, OC3 next week. That's one of two main confidential computing conferences each year. That is virtual and hybrid, or it is hybrid this year, so virtual and in person, if you happen to be in or around Germany. We do not meet next week, so there's no conflict with our meeting schedule, but you might want to carve out space on your calendar.
Yeah, if you're going to be going there, please maybe put a heart or something now, just so that we can see who else is likely to be there. It'd be nice to know who else is around. Okay, Ishlal, me, Fritz. Who else? Anyone else?
Are you just looking for in-person people?
In-person people, yeah, really. Just if let's look out for each other. Whoever's going to be there. I know a number of other folks from places like Intel will also be there, so that's great,
Yep.
and Google too. Thank you.
Yep. Some of you had asked in the background, and I was kind of back and forth whether I'd be able to get there, but I will not be in person, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear that.
Yep. Always next year, I guess. Let's see here. So another sort of organizational thing for everybody in the TAC, especially TAC voting members. There's not a whole lot of traffic on our Slack. So I think it's a very low burden to ask that everybody be on the Slack. It makes things easier for getting some quick turn stuff to make sure that people are ready for their topics each week, or that if we need to check in on something quickly. So I'd like everybody to take a moment to go to confidentialcomputing.io and click join us on Slack if you are not already in the Slack.
And if you have problems with making that work, and sometimes people do, please drop me an email and I will make sure that someone looks into it. Normally it would be Renu or Rian, but as we know, they're both away. So please drop me an email and I will try and make sure that gets fixed for you. I know people have had problems in the past. That's a very good call, Dan. I agree.
While people are doing that, I see Leonardo is asking if anyone has heard anything on the Confidential Computing Summit that is typically in June.
I saw something a few weeks ago, but nothing recently. So we have a.
I was expecting it to be announced already by this time of the year, but I didn't see anything, so I was wondering.
I've heard that the dates. Yeah, I've heard that the dates are. Let's see, the 3rd and 4th, I think, of June.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I mean, I didn't hear anything.
But it's not on the website, so I don't know if that's official or not. And if those are the dates, I can't attend. So.
Yep.
You heard 23rd, 24th of June.
Of June. Yeah. I hope I'm wrong because I would love to attend, but I'm at another conference that week.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's something we will keep our eye on. That's another important conference for us.
Yes, thank you.
All right, that brings us then, unless anybody had any other announcements. Okay, then we will move on to Mike Bartok's topic. And Mike, would you like to explain what you would like from the crew here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for the time today. When my first meeting was a month ago, and when I joined, I was talking about NIST wanting to make updates to a publication that we have, NIST Interagency Report 8320, which explains hardware-backed security for cloud environments, touching on cloud or confidential computing use cases as well. Again, just brief recap. This document is now 4 or 5 years old, so we're looking to update it. And Alec has graciously got me connected with this group. A lot of good members, organizations here that I think could provide useful feedback and updates to this document. So I wanted to invite any interested parties to participate in co-authoring updates to this document. I've put together a draft timeline for how I envision things could go. I think within 2 weeks, if we get a list of prospective co-authors from companies, that would be a good starting point. My plan is to host the common document on a NIST SharePoint for folks to have access to provide edits. To do that, I'll need names of people who will be working on the document to allow them access to it. And there's also like a NIST non-NIST authorship clearance process that our agency goes through. So I'll also have to submit these names to our, it's called Research Security Office now. It'll just be a quick check to see if non-NIST folks are allowed to be co-authors on the document. This is a fairly new process that we're being made to go through. I think 2 weeks should be enough time maybe for organizations to divide their people who would want to be co-authors on this. And I would say maybe let's try to keep it to two people per organization for authoring actual content. Mike, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. And the first one is, please may we have your email address so that we can email you.
Oh, yep. I'll add that to it.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing is, when you say 2 people per organization, do you mean 2 from Google, 2 from Intel, 3 from Huawei, 2 from, or do you mean 2 from the CCC?
Oh, sorry. I mean two from each individual company.
Okay. And the third question was, really, is there an opportunity, and it might not work and it might not be allowed, but for once we know which of the people from those different organizations want to play from the TAC, for the TAC actually to draft something, and for that, so that we can provide consensus agreed text by the TAC, rather than having sort of, let's say there's 6 authors. If those 6 authors could do it with the TAC and get approval from there, put it together, rather than having 6 different sets of things, because that way we're going to get a better sense of consensus from, as the group as a whole. But I realize that may not work with the way you do things at NIST.
We typically will work, like, have co-authors from individual companies. I can check to see the process for doing like a industry group like this, the CCC TAC to be part of the organization and have like the co-authors' names affiliated with that. What one caveat to that is, I think that I could see that potentially working for the general document that describes the different capabilities of confidential computing. There's also an appendix where individual companies will list their products that provide these capabilities.
And that should definitely be different and separate.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And that's really, in fact, a vital and a very helpful thing, I think, for companies and the industry as a whole. But yes.
Yeah. And I'm also sure that, while having a consensus view from the CCC is a good thing, that there needs to be some sort of individuating channel from the individual companies to express idiomatic opinions.
Yeah. So there's a tension there, and I realize that. And maybe if Mike could look into that from his side, we might decide as a TAC we don't even want to bother trying to do that. It might be too complex. But yeah, maybe
So-
Dan, what are your views on that as well?
Yeah,
as
well, I
the
guess
TAC chair?
Mike Bartok, it depends, I guess, on how many contributors you can tolerate. I think you will either get like one contributor out of this group or 40. I don't know about in between that. So we've got, I think, 9 premier companies alone, plus other general members, plus people who are not part of the CCC membership. So give me an idea of how many authors you can normally effectively coordinate.
That's a really good question. I think on the last one we had about 15 or 16. We had like 4 or 5 companies. So let me come back with a better answer. I'll follow up to the TAC email with more clarification on the co-authorship requirements.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think until we hear something differently, my understanding is that this meeting is a useful place to source company experts. And so those experts will be responding on behalf of their company. If the CCC can be considered as a corporate author or whatever the designation is, then we would have that individual or people providing a consensus view of the CCC, but otherwise individuals representing the companies are just representing.
And there's one slight weirdness in that I could either be, I would like to put myself forward as an author. I could either be the executive director of the CCC or just represent my own private company. And that might make more sense if we're not doing a consensus view of the CCC.
Yep. I understand that. And there's in the whole process, if we just skip past this kind of question at first, but once the document gets published, it'll have to go out for a public comment period, and CCC, any organization, any individual, whoever can submit public comments to it. I understand that's kind of after we get to consensus on the wording, but I'm just thinking contingency. If CCC is not allowed as an organization to be listed as like a co-author, or you could always submit comments as on behalf of the organization to the draft.
Alec has his hand up, I notice.
Yeah, let me just say, I think maybe one way we can approach it, and sometimes the way things works here is as Dan pointed out, when you call for authors, you get 40, and then when you have the meetings where you know the sections are due, you get 3. Then once we get those 3, then we can have a voting period with the CCC, and I'm proposing this to Dan here as chair. I'm just thinking out loud. We can have an up or down vote on whether the CCC agrees that that's representative, you know, maybe after a review period. And if the CCC TAC approves the sections, then presto, you've got CCC approval as it being the view of the CCC. And then you can maybe put the, you know, our little logo. I don't know if you've seen it, the little armadillo on the paper there, and it'll all be good. So I'm just saying, the thing I love is that you've got some due dates here. We'll take whatever we get on those due dates. We'll put it up for a vote with the CCC, and we'll get this thing through there. And it will have either approval from the CCC or not approval. But I don't think you need to have the CCC listed as an author. It will be a person's name, and then it will
I believe that NIST requires that anyway. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love this proposal, and I love the dates. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Mike.
Yep. And just caveat, all subject change based on a number of people.
Of course.
So and you're going to send this or send a link to this to the email and hopefully to Slack, and then we can look at
so
it.
So I'm fairly new to participate here. So could you just let me know the best way to proceed with distributing this out to everybody, including additional information? I did join the Slack this morning, so.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
you've already done the right thing. You already sent it to the TAC mail list, and that is kind of like the best place of record.
Oh, I missed it.
Slack is also a great way to kind of ping people, but it's sort of less of a, I don't know that we have like public records, but the mail list I think is a little bit more persistent for that. I see
Okay.
Mano in chat affirming that as well. Okay, so I know that we've only got Simon for another 30 minutes. I don't know how much time he needs, but I want to make sure we switch to him relatively soon. Is there anything else that you would like to cover, Mike?
No, that's it. Just want to thank everyone in advance who's going to participate, and looking forward to providing this update to everybody.
And I know we'd all like to thank you and Alec for putting you in touch with this group as well. It's absolutely what we're here for.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
All right, now we are on to the blueprints. And I saw Simon had updated blueprint B. So is that where you would like to start, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I have to confess it's not complete yet, but in terms of kind of content, I wanted to kind of get a yay or nay in terms of direction, right? It's my first time writing one of these for you folks. So I will apologize for this. And some of the specifics in the examples that are in here I am conscious those are still kind of Azure heavy. So So firstly, a kind of directional yay or nay in terms of the way it's going, and then I can tidy that up tomorrow. But in terms of the examples, I mean, I've put together kind of examples for GCP and Azure. I have got a placeholder for some AWS examples, although that's probably not something we're really able to do in the CCC. If anybody has any other suggestions for other kind of more open source things we could point to, I would be more than willing to put them in and have a look at.
Okay. Now I haven't had a chance to read through it.
Nor I.
If you want to,
No, that's fine.
Kind of give us a tour through, or
sure. Yeah, look, so we can go from the top. I mean, tried to take it from a definition of what secure key release is at the top, calling out the kind of two pieces of technology really that it relies on. So things like boot chain, expanded out. And this is very kind of high level stuff here because obviously at the beginning of the doc, we don't want to necessarily dive into the weeds, but really calling out some of the kind of principles and technologies that are used for boot chain, and then the kind of enclave identity piece. And then if we scroll down a little bit further.
See, I can get rid of the page breaks.
Yeah, sorry, I pasted it out of Word, so it's probably rather than
just
directly in Google Docs.
Minor point: we capitalize confidential and computing as house style. So
very good.
Minor things, but if you could.
Yep, no worries. So similarly, we kind of break out the concept of enclave identity, and then go into going through some of what the elements of secure key release are.
So a comment on enclave identity. Oh, go up a bit. Sorry if you wouldn't mind, Dan. You above, you talk about confidential VMs and enclaves as separate things, which I kind of approve of. Here, it looks like you're using enclave to mean both of those, which we try not to do.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So if we could find a way of avoiding that, a T identity may be what you want. I don't know, but if we could just try and, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking that as I was writing it actually, so that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
I will say we've been inconsistent on that. Sometimes enclave means to people SGX, but I've seen a lot of people use it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the sort of thing which again we try and do as house style. Whenever I see it, I query it, but we're not consistent. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But if we can fix it without too much pain, we might as well. I think.
Look, it's fairly straightforward to do in this doc.
Cool, thank you.
And then if we scroll a bit further down, so this is where I tried to sort of lay on some of the more technical details, and I will apologize, the diagram that here is an Azure diagram from some of that documentation. I will replace that with a more kind of generic version of that, but really just trying to go through some of the technical principles around some of the activities like key unwrapping that happens as part of this, and some of the attributes that we look at for the attestation data. Then I tried to add, and probably where I could do it a little bit of help, because obviously most of my focus in this space is really in the Azure space. So I was trying to find whether there are some more kind of, so I'm obviously kind of aware of what we have for our own secure key release policies and tooling. If there are some more kind of open source examples that we could point to in this doc, I think that's probably more useful than my specific Azure examples.
even if we can't, if we can't find sufficient open source versions, then if we have something from Google GCP or something like that as an example, not a counter example, but as a side example or a generalized example, that's good as well. Maybe Renee might be able to look at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I did paste some links in a bit further down. There's basically an example from Azure and one from GCP. But if we've got some specific GCP content that we can put in there, that'll probably be better than what I provided. And then really looking, and again, this is probably a little bit Azure focused here, but looking at the way we would typically write secure key release policies and then some of the principles that go around that. I did put in a kind of table that kind of compares between the three kind of main hyperscalers. Obviously, that does include AWS, and I confess I did kind of borrow this from some other things that I've been working on. So I'm assuming we would probably drop the AWS mention out of here, but I left it here just for completeness.
Well, if it's AWS using TEs, then that's fine. But if it's using Nitro, then I think current guidance is that we don't.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so like that, I've included some kind of key, some code examples for secure key release. The Azure ones are mine. The GCP and AWS ones are other ones that I've found floating around. And I tried to sort of close it out by putting it around where we would typically in the real world see secure key release being put. So I tried to kind of hang it on some kind of practical application patterns. So typically, obviously we see it for kind of disk unlock. Things like secrets during build pipelines is another quite good example where I see a lot of adoption of secure key release 2Ts. And then a bit further down, similarly try to layer in some further kind of code examples of some kind of practical. I'm a little bit unclear. So the enterprise integration points, I mean, I started writing this out because it was there in the default template that came. I'm not entirely happy with what I ended up writing, to be honest. I'm not really sure how much benefit there is really from what's there in terms of enterprise integration points, other than the kind of identity integration bit, which I guess is probably for most organizations the most relevant part.
So Dan, you wrote the initial template, didn't you? What sort of thing did you have in mind? Was this a good fit for that?
I'd have to read through what's here. I think that it might be good that in each of these, we not have a purely cloud-based view, but also an enterprise view. And so that might not be text that Simon needs to generate either. So we want other authors to be able to pitch in. So it's great if the lead author can kind of get a start on each section, and then we can try to rope other people in to add areas where they might not have as much content.
And it may be at the bottom. Is there a contributors/authors list at the bottom that we want to do? We don't always do that. We might decide we don't want to, but I don't know how the group feels about that.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't in the doc as it's written now, but but obviously, I'm more than happy to take any contributions.
We tend not to. We tend to present things as CCC if we can, because that has a good cachet. But at the same time, we appreciate the work you're putting in very much.
Yeah. So what I thought I would do is something for us to try out is the lead person is doing the most work. They're going to provide the initial draft. They're going to incorporate other people's changes. This is hopefully not a extreme use of time, but it's going to be a material use of time. So I want to make sure that they're recognized for that work. And I think we can just sort of play it by ear if somebody else is making significant contributions. Hopefully this doesn't get to be a onerous process to try to recognize that, but that's my first take is let's get like one or two lead authors that are doing the bulk of the work, and that's part of the recognition of that effort.
Yeah. And I think if we do that, we should definitely say and agreed or worked on by the CCC TAC or something. But I agree, finding a way to recognize the hard work and expertise, let's face it, put in by these folks is a good thing if we can.
Okay. Well, at first glance, this looks great. Simon, thanks for filling it out. And
thank you.
I'll take a more directed view in the coming days here, certainly before our next meeting.
Yeah, and I'll keep an eye out for comments, and we can do async. That's fine.
Great. And then I know you mentioned that you
Yeah, so
plan to
I've
get
not-
to this one. Is there anything new? No, not anything.
No,
new.
so I haven't got anything, to be honest, for this, right? So we've been unfortunately drawn in.
Shocking that you've only done the one of them, and really,
Unfortunately, been drawn into a customer that's very tied up with some geopolitical solutions at the moment. But yeah, I have got some time tomorrow, so I'll have a crack at that.
thank you.
And for anybody who's looking for the links, there's a number of places to get them, such as the TAC mail list. They should be in the agenda for today, as well as you go to the governance repo. In the issues, we have the technical guidance documents, and they are all here. So I did not yet add the link for this one, which we will talk about in a little bit, but let's go ahead and update that here. You know what, I'll do that after the fact, so I'm not trying to write something on the fly here. Okay, anything else to mention on secure key release?
Thank you.
No, not for me. All good.
Okay. Let's see here, authors for Blueprint C.
We didn't put it in this document yet because we're still in the kind of early review discussion with Mingxuan. But there is a doc. I'm happy to share it on the screen.
Sure.
Maybe René simply does not know how to work with Google Docs.
It's also highly possible. Very new technology. Very new technology. We should all try it. As I was kind of struggling in between very short version and much longer document, because there's a lot to cover, especially in clean rooms and use cases, I ended up kind of creating both. There's a 2-page version, and then there is a 9-page version. Especially goes into deeper details on the use cases, then switches to architecture, the proposal kind of who are the parties that are participating and what components would this collaborative clean room have. So from kind of the data owners, data publishers, to infrastructure, to the governance system, and of course attestation and key release. Probably we can link that to the other doc or blueprint, and then goes into the open source ecosystem with the Manatee as one prime example, and then CCF from Microsoft and Veracruz, then gives examples of similar offerings by CSPs, and then talks about other ISVs in the industry, OPEC, Centric, Fortanix. So again, I wasn't sure which one is the best approach, or if we should have both, or should I just kind of try to trim down the longer one. So that's what we're just starting discussing with Mingxuan.
Could you sing in the first one?
And Simon, I think yours was currently at about, what, 7 pages or so? The first one is very short, right? What are we trying to showcase here? Kind of the focus on confidential computing and attestation of code, the components, as we discussed, the owners, the infrastructure of the clean room itself, some kind of policy controls.
So when you say confidential consortium framework, what are you referring to? Or is that a made up thing?
CCF from Microsoft is the open source kind of governance ledger.
But confidential computing framework rather than consortium framework maybe there then?
I don't think so.
Fluid computing? Let's see.
It's
double
not
check.
consortium, I don't think. Anyway, that sorry, Dame Minimis.
Oh yeah, consortium. It is consortium.
Well,
Yeah.
is it?
Was it?
Yeah.
I think it's confidential computing. Okay, I'll go and double check on our side actually.
Okay, double check. Yeah.
Oh no, you call it consortium. That's really unhelpful, Microsoft. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's immensely unhelpful. Oh, but that's Coco now. Oh no, what? Okay, forget it. Anyway, carry on.
Azure Managed CCF.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
right. It's some sort of, framework that you can use that uses blockchain to sign a non-tamperable ledger and stuff. It's been a product for many years now. It started back in the SGX days, and the name goes back like to the
Quite a way
beginning
back.
of
Yeah,
when
no,
the
this is
CCC was founded. So yeah, names.
Yeah, ignore.
names
Sorry, my bad.
become old over time.
just as an example, right? Especially as
sure.
we were trying to bias towards the open source capabilities.
Yep.
That's why even here I wasn't. I haven't added kind of commercial examples in the short version, so I kind of focused on more of the open source, and then very short on kind of typical use cases, very high level on enterprise integration points. Was also a little bit confused on that one in the template.
I guess the question is, given our proposed readership, which of these two is going to be most useful, or should we just keep both?
Well, what I was thinking to propose is that we should probably bang on the outline format first, and then once people more or less agree that, yeah, that's the right kind of content, then we can drop into the more expensive effort of getting into the 9-page.
There's the Blaise Pascal quote, though, there isn't there? I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Often misattributed to Twain, but
I'm pretty sure it was Twain.
It wasn't. It was Pascal first. I just researched it for about 5 minutes as I was waiting for this to go through. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So open to for comments again. I'll copy paste it in the blueprint shared blueprint doc, but it was easier for us to collaborate on this one initially.
Yeah, I was hoping towards shorter documents, but as I went in to write my own, I found that it is kind of hard to keep anything of worth in too few of words. So
yeah. And as I said, I think it may well be that there's a lot of value for people in both sets of documents, right? The first one is to understand the basics, and the third one is the second one is to be actually able to get somewhere around planning and architecting something. And I wouldn't want to deprive our readership of useful stuff, right? That's not what we're there for. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's great that you've got all of this great content already. So looking forward to reviewing that between now and the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Let's see here. Reshare. I think I saw a mention to Veracruz. I think that is our.
Yeah. Should I remember? Yeah, I was just seeing how the last updates were a very long time ago. So should it even be mentioned or not?
Probably not, but it's something to just double check.
Again, that's a good one to ask members for other suggestions of open source things that they're aware of that do similar things. And not necessarily CCC projects. We're always happy to embrace open source externally as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So an idea that I've had in the back of my head for a while is that we tend to talk about the sort of the art of the possible with confidential computing, or what you could do kind of maximally with confidential computing to sell it as something useful. And then in the same breath, we kind of talk about the simplest way to do it when we talk about ease of use. So we kind of maybe imply that with lift and shift, you get the full benefits of something like an enclave. And what occurred to me is that the difference in that is sort of a levels of integration. And so that's what I've tried to put forth in this paper, that often the starting point is you just turn confidential computing on for VMs. And I think that was some of the first incarnations that we saw at Azure and Google. You could pick a machine instance type that was confidential computing, but you weren't necessarily going to do anything with the attestation. So then the next step up from there is actually trying to make use of attestation, have that integrated into backend services like KMS. And then this can be kind of a pointer to like Blueprint B, for example. But now we have moved from just isolating a server or a VM on a server to we have security that goes kind of through the infrastructure. And then the next degree of integration is where you've actually bound something to a workload. And then in order to do that, you need to have a more prescriptive VM that lets you actually measure that workload. And you need the more stringent attestation policies that know how to look for that workload measurement and discriminate that differently than other attestations. So like one of the differences back in the second level is you can create a variety of virtual machines and be running different workloads on each of those, but your normal VM attestation will look the same for every single like Ubuntu that you launch that has the same kernel parameters or same kernel launch parameters, same QEMU flags. That's all going to measure the same, even though you're running entirely different workloads in them. And that's why there's this additional level of work that is required if you want to get out to actually identifying the workload. So I try to introduce those as 3 levels and then kind of break down each level into what that means in terms of workload, infrastructure, the threat model, and maybe limitations. So limitations kind of segues you to the next section. So here, for example, in level 1, you're not doing anything with attestations, so there's no new security policy, and it's kind of hard to realize the full benefits of confidential computing. Alec.
You're muted, Alec.
Gets me every time. When you're talking about workload identity, Dan, and I know there's been discussion about this on a separate team, I just haven't kept up with the latest. Do you distinguish between identical workloads running in different political jurisdictions on different hardware with different firmware updates and so forth? That's one of the sticking points that we've been having when you've got generations of hardware that are spread out across different political jurisdictions. Customers see the exact same workload in those 2 different settings as having different identities. But I always see those kind of lumped together here, and I didn't know if you wanted to distinguish them in your paper or just kind of think of it as an abstract concept.
I think that's an interesting thing to think about, and it's not something that's reflected in here. So I think it would. Do you think that would be more of like a level 2 or a level 3 thing? Like you've got VMs that are just sort of like generic VMs in multiple geographies, and you want to distinguish based on geography for a generic VM? Or is it more often the case that you're actually trying to identify the specific workload within those VMs?
The things I've seen called out are kind of like 4. One is geography, political jurisdiction, patch level. So the security version number, right? As you're rolling a patch across the fleet, it hits workloads, and half of your workloads will be at one security version number and the other ones won't. And then the actual generation of the hardware that it's running on, whether it's, Granite Rapids or Diamond Rapids, to use old vernacular that you might remember, and then obviously the workload measurement itself. And those things those are the big four buckets that I've heard customers ask for inputs on. So I love the way you've organized it here. I was wondering if you could add in that extra complexity.
Keith had his hand up first, I think.
Yeah. Well, so let me respond to Alec and then let Keith. So short answer, Alec, yes, I would love to integrate that in. I think there's probably like a spectrum of integration levels. And so I was trying to kind of make it discrete. So we just kind of figure out where the right place is for that. And I'm totally open to feedback on any of this.
So I think my comment is on a similar topic, but perhaps in the opposite direction. So I think it's very valuable to disconnect those two different axes of ideas, the way I think of it. There is, the types of flows that you're accomplishing with confidential computing on not using attestation, only checking that it's on versus doing more in-depth code identity checks. And I think that's a very useful discussion to have, separate from what I think is a different axis on how thorough those checks are and what evidence is being verified. And I think if you do conflate them too much, we can't have this conversation without having a 20 times as long discussion around the specific evidence that is being evaluated. And I think this specific level and this axis of it, of what you gain and what you don't gain by just turning it on, checkbox security, what you gain by just verifying that it's on with some basic checks, what you do and don't get, and then with the extra work that you have to do in order to actually get a meaningful code identity, what you do and don't get. And then whether or not that includes jurisdictional, geographical things is kind of a different axis that can be layered in at 3 or even 2. But it's, I think, a worthwhile discussion to have without those aspects.
Yeah, that's really good feedback. I guess, should we let Ophir go first since...
Okay.
Apologies, Mike. Before, thank you, Keith, for what you said. I'll add more into what I had in mind. I know that I'm nagging on that every time that I'm opening the mic, but it is super important from our point of view that confidential computing is also remote attestation. And if someone is trying to do confidential computing without remote attestation, it's not secure. It's like I'm running something, I cannot prove it, so I can run it outside. And if I'm running something and I cannot prove what the software, someone can push malicious software into it. So I think that it is important. We are trying to pitch that to our customers and prospects, and I think that this is also for this forum to make clear that no remote attestation is not secure. It's just someone has the machine that does ping if you know the context. It's not really effective for everything, for anything.
Well, Ophir, I used to have the same opinion. I've now come, after years of working on this problem, to have the opinion that, in fact, attestation, which is a supply chain transparency technology, and VM privacy, let's call it, are in fact two distinct features that have substantial overlap and provide a synergy between them, but that each of them can have an independent life cycle and an independent value to market.
So can I take a view between those two?
So I just want to finish my thought, and then I'll and then the next phase, once we manage to persuade potential newcomers into the world of confidential computing, is to talk about what is the attack surface and what do we want to measure. And I think that this is what you're doing here, starting from a CVM and going at the end to a confidential container or confidential pod, or in the case of SGX, a confidential process, and talking about the value of each one of them. But for example, in Kubernetes, and this is what we're doing, what Coco Kata are doing, is saying you can run the node inside a TE, but that's not providing you real value, because it's a an opening node, software measurement that does not reflect the pods in it or the workload. So that's the one. And the last thing, I think that what Alex mentioned about other aspects of what do we measure. So this is something that I think that we should talk about those levels that are maybe parallel. The software measurements of the workload and which hardware, and we can have a combination and policies for the workload for the container that is in the enclave, in the TE, and the other aspects like what version of the firmware, which type of firmware, but we can have policies that are on the software level on the application in a different level than what hardware do we run and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm done.
All right, thank you.
Cool. So if I can take a view between Nathaniel's and Afia's one, which is that we've been very clear that it's not confidential computing if it's not attested. That's because that's the definition. There is a problem. There's a variety of problems. One is that you can consume confidential computing services using what we think of as TEs, hardware-backed TEs from GCP and Azure, as I understand it, without doing attestation. So there's already a name clash there, right? Not to mention the name clash with things like Nitro, where it maybe doesn't fit our thing. So there is I think a difficult route to be traveled here, which Dan is trying to sort of worm through, I think actually quite successfully, between saying you really do need to do this, but we understand that you're using services which call themselves confidential computing, and they're not as secure as they ought to be. So I think that's the first thing that I think that you're trying to navigate, Dan, and I think that's a very worthwhile and important thing to do. I also want to say that we've been thanking everyone else for doing their work, and I want to thank you for doing this work too, right? But the other thing was about workload identity, and I may be misrepresenting the TWI group here, but I don't think I am when I say that in terms of them, by identity, they mean for every single instance of a TE should have a different identity. So identity is actually anchored to an instance. So when we're talking about identity, we're talking about something slightly different here. I agree with Ofir that we need to be able to differentiate between different hardware versions, firmware versions, UEFI versions, OS versions, all of these things. I think that's very important. But I also agree with Keith that some of this is probably something we need to keep orthogonal to some of these discussions. And this is the difficult needle we're trying to thread here, because we need to provide useful conceptual information to potential users and implementers of this without allowing our really important dogmatic views that we need to iron out here to take over these documents and stop them being as useful as they might be. So that was just some thoughts.
Ming-Shen.
Oh yeah. For level 1, are we still recommending customers use the level 1 architecture, just to lift and shift? Because I cannot think about a use case that makes sense without any attestation, without any protection of the data in transit.
So I don't know that we're recommending anything within this. We're just kind of describing the 3 levels. And
okay.
I'd say that people use this level. Now, I think one of the things that Ofir was getting at is if I wasn't using attestation, but I was advertising that I was going to be protecting somebody else's information using a confidential computing service, and there was no attestation, that would be a inappropriate use of that. But if a different use case is I have an application within my own company that I want to host on somebody's cloud, and I just want to make sure that that has some protection against other tenants doing memory probing attacks, then it's entirely reasonable, I think, to deploy that on a confidential computing instance.
Except you can't be sure that it's actually been deployed on that instance.
That's fine, but that's sort of like a risk level. So if
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. So that means people can say, okay, so let's say this is a reference levels we are recommending. So people can say, I'm running inside confidential computing with level 1 protection. Such claim, for example.
Maybe we should say something like the Confidential Computing Consortium does not never recommends that you do this because it doesn't include remote attestation and therefore doesn't count as confidential computing. If there were a disclaimer like that on this, I would be happy, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd add something to that effect. Nathaniel?
Would that make you happy, Ming-Shen?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify something about what I said previously and sort of point out something that may be non-obvious. So I said that attestation and privacy are two distinct features with their own market value, life cycle, etc. You might think from that I'm suggesting that the level 1 is something that is is an expression of confidential computing which has value. But I actually agree with Ming-Shen that I don't think there are any actual use cases for this level. One of the things that I think is most important for the whole ecosystem here is to recognize that because attestation and privacy are two distinct things, and because the privacy has no value without the attestation, one of the best things we can do to increase the adoption of confidential computing is to make attestation itself, whether in confidential computing or elsewhere, ubiquitous. So if the expectation among all computing is that attestation is a required thing, then the value you can derive from confidential computing, that is the mixture of the privacy and the attestation, suddenly has a clear and demonstrable value. But the biggest barrier to adoption we see today is that very few companies, especially very few companies outside of the big tier companies mostly represented on this call, actually have any attestation in their software delivery pipelines at all.
I will say that when I went to find examples for each one of these things, and it came to coming up with examples for level 2 for having confidential computing enabled backends for things like KMSs and looking for like open source examples, it was challenging. So if we take sort of a maximalist view that level 1 has no value, we're setting a very high bar for adoption that companies need to invest very heavily in doing their own development and infrastructure.
It's not that it has no value, it's that it has no demonstrable value, right? Like, because we can't guarantee that it's private, we can't demonstrate the value of doing it.
Okay, well, I love the engagement on this, and I selfishly want to keep going with this, but I know we have to get into the NIST documents.
So I just want to suggest one thing.
I will give you the last word, Ophir.
Thank you. And I'm strongly fighting myself not to talk about our offer, so throwing it away. I think that for that discussion about the different levels, it would be valuable to say for each level, what do you get from it and what are the risks? So not just having a high level, this is less secure, but you can say in that level, you get this protection, but you have the attack surface from A, B, and C, and that will let the reader decide what they want to do. And they can choose level 1, 2, or 3, but knowing what's under the hood.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. Thank you. Okay. The link for this is in the chat. The links for the other ones are in the GitHub issue, and I will add this one into the GitHub issue. So there's one place to go. If this Zoom window moves out of the way, then I can click on the other tab, which is our favorite NIST response document.
Shall I see if I can share this? We'll just give it a go. If you unshare, you may have to share it after all. I think it'd be easier if I can do this. So system window capture and CCC response to NIST. Right, can you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well, fantastic.
great.
Okay, well done whoever owns Zoom for getting this sorted out. That's fantastic news. Okay, so we've got a lot done here, and I really thank everyone for their engagement. What I'd like to do is to get as much of this agreed as possible, so that any outstanding questions are done, and then get that done today. So we've got about, let's say, 40 minutes to do that, 45 at the max at the out, and then I will do things like top and tail it with information about the CCC and all those sorts of things. So hopefully stuff which is non-contentious. But I'd like to just go through here and get as we go. So the very first thing, I'm not sure where that is this one here. There's quite a lot of discussion here, but it hasn't. I think most of the points here have been dealt with in other places in the text. So unless anyone has anything specific, I'd like to remove this comment. Rene and Paul were the people who responded to this. Are you happy for me to remove this comment? Rene, I think you're the only one here.
Yeah.
If you see anything, if you see anything that we have missed as we go through, we can try and fix that. But let's just remove this for now. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so the next one. No one came up with any other threats. So unless people want to suggest some other particular threats that we think are relevant, then I suggest we just tick that and move on.
Yeah, maybe one thing in the threats, the ability to actually read the models and there is no way without remote attestation to say I have some sensitive model and I can protect
that's
it.
Memory scraping, right?
No, it's not memory scraping. It's the fact that when you have, we call it the first secret. Let's say that you have a model and that model is...
Okay, give me some text. Give me some text. We don't have time to do this. We have to give text. So model...
Okay. Models cannot really be encrypted. Yeah, model protection when on persistent storage.
You can, you just encrypt them, right?
Yeah, but then the key to decrypt them when you start the application, it's somewhere on the image. So you'll tell me that you encrypted it with something else. And indirectly, we can always get to that first secret that needs to be in clear text to start that decryption of that model.
Okay, give me some words. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna
without confidential computing, there is no way to have an encrypted model on the image, because there is always a first secret that encrypts that model, and only with remote attestation you can get to access that key through a secure key release and not have that key on the image.
No, okay, that's putting giving the answer to the problem. We need to explain the
Right,
problem here.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
As a point of order, I think that we need to approve this document today. Is that the...
as much as possible, yeah. So, okay, what I'm going to do is...
I'm going to say no new text, or suggest that we do no new text.
Okay,
well,
good with that.
let me counter propose. If there's something that people are really desperate about, they write it now, and if we have time at the end, in suggesting mode, if we have time at the end, we go back and review it, but we don't review new text to start with. How's that done?
That sounds great.
Okay, right. So, Afir, if you want to put something in, please put
can
something
you just
in here.
Paste the link on the chat, and I'll do that while you're speaking.
I'll take care of the pasting.
Thank you very much indeed. I don't think there's anything particularly here. We've dealt with this text here. No one suggested any other text to go with it, so I'm going to remove this. There's quite a lot of discussion around the phrasing here, partly because Osama had some specific questions around here. Is Osama on the call today?
No.
No. So I think I dealt with these questions here about blanket protection against physical attacks. I think that is accurate and fair. If everyone is happy with that, I will just take it. Okay. Hearing no concerns, I will accept. There we go. All right. So, accelerators, we've got some text further down below. So unless anyone has any comments, I'm going to remove this one here. Okay. I'll accept some space addition. Sandboxing, we didn't put anything in the end here about sandboxing. So I think we're just going to have to say we have nothing specific unless maybe we does do other things. Okay, so that's losing that. This is a thread which we kind of dealt with at length, but we don't have anything further to add. So I'm going to accept this here. This was felt to be extraneous to CC. I agree, and I think, in fact, Rithika, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, agreed further down that it probably wasn't specific to CC, so we're removing and removing. So I think the intention was that this text here is an alternative to this text here. So I think the verifiable identity is supposed to remove to allow us to get rid of the binding attestation thing. Please tell me if that is correct, or if anyone disagrees. I think the verifiable identity bullet gives a clearer explanation for people not skilled in the art, and is actually a bit more general anyway, which I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's remove this one. Oh, remove that one, and accept the removal, accept the removal, accept this text. How do I accept that? Huh. Oh yeah, and this came, in fact, from some of the stuff we wrote for the UK one, which I think was really helpful because there's been a bit of movement in both directions. So that's good. Okay, just removing these things. So what are we on here? No. Yes. Okay. So
I think that's attached to the bullet that you removed. Is that right?
No, I think this is attached to this bullet. Oh, this one we removed because it's the same as the other one. Yes, okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
That one there. So that goes. This one here is attached to this, and Hank, I think, is talking about this here.
Yeah, so I think what's happening is the bullet gets left over and then the comment is stuck on the empty bullet.
Okay, so do I lose this then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, folks. This is quite complex, but we're getting there. So that also is good, I think. So let's do this like this. Okay, so are people happy with this? I think this is a nice that puts things together. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This one. So I'm unclear what this text means. I think I may have written it, but there we go. Do we need this text here, the however current confidential computing solutions? as well as this piece here?
I think that when I read that second part, that however, that was very specific to the T.fail attack on a very specific version of TDX, and I thought it was not very general.
Okay, are people happy for me to lose that text? This is not supposed to be a perfect document with going over everything. This is an introduction to why confidential computing is useful in this domain. And I think we run the danger of over perfecting this document. So, okay, that's good. So that means that is dealt with. That is dealt with. Okay, and that as well, I think. Okay, so people happy with this text? Okay, I'll accept it. So here, this is the, again, TE specific, TPM specific stuff that we have removed. That was attached to another thing. This one, again, we've just agreed to remove elsewhere as well. So let's do that. Okay. Again, I think this is going into too much detail here. I have tried to address this with a particular approach, which is generalized here. Hopefully that's acceptable to people. Any comments? Okay. Right. I don't think we've got any specific text from Osama, I'm afraid. So I'm not going to take this in, and I think it's pretty much a very specific comment. But without text, I'm afraid we have to say we're not going to take it at this point. So this here is an attempt to deal with as Dan said, this wasn't a sentence. So I've tried to make what Henk wrote into a sentence and hopefully make it useful. I think the standards for this are currently ill-defined is the challenge or the impediment to deal with here. So are people happy with this text? This text here, which also includes this text, which I think is pretty good. I think Osama was making points about the imperfection of TLS protocols as they're currently.
So hang on a sec on the bullet above. Just
sorry, I apologize. I'll
keep
wait.
up here. No, nothing to apologize for. Just kind of. So you fixed his sentence by getting rid of the period and just joining it with the next text. Okay, there's a critical role for.
And then I made explicit why this is an impediment or a challenge by saying standards for this are currently ill-defined.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the actual state is right now. So there's all like the blank standards. And some of them are still in flight. Yeah, I guess that's fine. They're
not fully defined. How about that?
That's better. Thank you.
No, that's great. That's really helpful. I wasn't sure the state, and this certainly helps. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Do we have the C references actually populated?
I we have some materials here. I would love to have more. These are mainly from Osama. They have a few others as well, but I'd love people to add these. This is sort of stuff that I'm happy just to check and to add in the next couple of days. But please, if you could get it in within the next couple of days. I'm not going to get a chance to look at this until, well, yeah, I'm not sure when, but you have time to do something before I put it in. The date is, let me just check. The date needs to be in by the 9th. So there is time just if you do it over the weekend. Right, so just going back to where we were, which was here. Any comments or thoughts about this bullet? Attested TLS protocols.
That feels very specific to that author's interests.
But at the same time, it is an impediment. You know, TLS is a really important underpinning here, and if there aren't any, or there are few implementations that we feel are strong, then this I think is a fair point for things that should be addressed.
The question is whether attested TLS is a must, because you can use remote attestation to protect the data and to protect on the server side the TLS private key. So this is for a specific implementation of securing the network connection.
I've added some text.
No, but even for deployment that require TLS, you can have a. This is what we're doing. We have the certificate. If the server runs in an enclave, it gets its TLS private key only via request for an attestation-aware KMS that it proves based on the software measurements that it is who it is claiming to be and running in an enclave. And so attested TLS is going one step forward and saying, hey, let's implement, inject remote attestation into the TLS. So I don't think that we should shout it out that this solution is not fully baked. I don't understand why we need to mention it here. The previous one, I understand. This is the whole story now that we have ever since that latest vulnerability that we want to identify.
I would say if work is required to improve the general standard of a set of things, it's worth stating. But I'm happy to be overruled.
And what I'm feeling here is that we want to be here in this context as a group that is open to say what is not perfect, right? Mm-hmm. What's still open. But I feel that it doesn't mean that you cannot have a secure TLS that is based on remote attestation. It is just saying that if you want to have a TLS protocol that is attested, this is not fully baked yet. So I think that it gives someone that reads it the impression that you cannot secure a TLS connection and have it based on protected via remote attestation. And this is the wrong translation of the situation.
Well, it says existing.
Yeah.
What if I, in the background, make some text that will basically say what the bullet above it says, that standards are not fully defined?
Sure. Let's. I don't think that's the point. I think it's less the standards and more the implementations. Actually, I think the standards, we've got some good ideas of where it should be done, but too many of the implementations are not doing it that way.
Well, there maybe is what no I would standardized attested TLS. That's still like in draft stage.
Right, but I would add something in the nature of, however, there are existing implementations that can make sure that the TLS connection is secure via remote attestation or something of that nature. So TLS as TLS, I agree, it's not fully baked, but there are ways to protect the TLS connection and make sure that it is only successful in cases that you're using confidential computing. Yes. Cool.
How's that?
Perfect.
I suspect that we'll get pushback, but I think that's fair enough. I think you've made your point. Okay, logging and monitoring. I added this because there were some points made. If people like it, please shout. If you don't, also please shout. Or just shout if you don't like it, might be easier. I was particularly proud of the word naive in this context. I thought that was fun. That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So are we happy with all of these things then, do we think? Right. Let's do some. I do hate it when it suddenly becomes bold when I accept it. Right. So
That's a bold statement. Yeah.
hey, thank you very much
Sorry.
indeed. You're here all week, right? Don't forget to tip your waitresses. Okay, so that was my intention of dealing with that. Again, measured boot logs is not really relevant here.
Agreed.
I mean, if I were just to remove that text, do we think it's useful and helpful and correct? Is that useful? Saying security assessment should include verification that platform identities keys are hardware bound and non-exportable, or platform identities, again, very TPM related, right? So maybe we should just remove it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Done. Done. So this is basically a nod back to the logging and monitoring thing, but a specific point. So I don't think there's anything there. Anyone know of any legal or privacy reasons? No, I spelt defense the American way. I'm very proud of myself for remembering that. Okay, so this again was TPM related, so I think we're okay with removing it. And after that, it's all old text that we decided to ditch. So let's go back up to Ophir's thoughts here, and let's read through this and see what we think.
So the definition of the problem or a solution to a problem?
It's the definition of the problem.
I think that's fair. I don't have a problem with that. I like that text. Dan, Rene, anyone, frankly. Okay, I'm hearing that we like that. So let me just
just need to change the bold. I didn't.
Yeah. Again, that's not such a bold statement. I think that's a very easily defended statement. But okay, I believe then that we have consensus on this. I would like suggestions of materials. Please put them directly in the document. I will top and tail this with general information about the CCC. And I'd like to thank everybody. We agreed that we were not going to put people's names on this at all. My name will be attached as the person who submitted it, but that doesn't mean that I'm claiming that it's my document. It is absolutely not my document. This is absolutely everybody's document. And I'd like to thank everyone. This is exactly the way we should be handling these sorts of things. And I particularly think that as the regulators and standards SIG gets more work under its belt, we're going to need to do more of these. And things like Dan's piece of work that he presented before, all of those sorts of things are going to be really, really important to the regulated standards group, because regulators won't accept stuff without definitions of the type that we're talking about here. So unless I hear any suggestions to the contrary, I'm going to declare that we have consensus here. I don't think we need a formal vote on this. If there's no one wants to say anything against it, Dan, this is your call. You are the chair of this meeting, but as the owner of this document, I'm happy with where we are. But please correct me if you're not, Dan.
I think what we should do, let me just float this, is that you take the final version of this, which is probably just reposting the same link, and then maybe in a GitHub, maybe we put it in a GitHub issue, and then we ask all the voting members to acknowledge that they agree with the final text. And if we don't get, see, the dicey thing is if we don't get a response, then, you know, I don't want it to hang up actually submitting it on time. But I also feel like if we just say it was approved, we very quickly made some changes here, and we don't have.
Are we quorate?
That is an excellent question. So I see
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many do we need to be quorate?
we need 5. I only got to 4, but
I made 5, I think. So we have NVIDIA, Google, AMD, TikTok. Maybe it's just and Microsoft. 5. We have 5. We could vote on it right now.
I would kind of prefer to take a once over on it.
Okay. The problem, Dan, is what happens if someone votes if it doesn't go down, because we will have no time to fix it.
Right.
And we said we wanted complete today in a submission, complete today, which is basically what we've got to. So one could argue that if people are not here to vote, that is their problem.
Right. So I guess maybe it's a nit, but in the materials to reference, I don't think that the last reference is anything more than like an individual's paper.
Okay, we can remove. I was also going to put in our white papers links to at least a couple of them. So those. Do we want to put the
think the
rats
quality
in?
of the second one is like a link to somebody's email in a mail list. That's not like a.
No, it's not appropriate for that. No, that's fair. Who wrote this? Oh, it's excellent then. Brilliant piece of work. We should definitely reference that. No, that's definitely considered work, academic level. That's brilliant. I mean, we can question that as well. I don't mind. But I mean, these are the key ones. I think we should be putting in, frankly. Do we want to put the rats stuff in or not?
Just like a link to the rats working group. Sure.
I meant the rats IETF RFC.
Yeah, probably worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use that a lot.
Yep. Can I remember what number it is?
9334.
Oh, you're so sad. Or I'm really impressed, depending on which way you want to look at that. Okay, I'll add those.
Okay.
So what do we want to do? Are we
Yeah, so let's see here. Let's see if we can do a vote. So Caroline, can you represent Microsoft? Aging Caroline. All right, so let's see if Caroline comes off of mute in a minute, and then we've got Mingshen and Nathaniel and myself and Renee. So yeah, we're still quorum if Caroline is available. So why don't we do?
We have Intel as well. We have Monaj.
Mona is no longer with Intel.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes.
The loss of Intel.
Sorry, I do apologize.
Intel's loss.
I was just looking at Intel, the LinkedIn, which still suggests that, so apologies.
Right.
Not sure if that counts, but Alec posted his opinion in the chat before he left.
Was it a positive opinion?
Yes.
Yeah, he said it's very good and I support sending it to NIST.
Okay, well that will do as our Microsoft then.
Yep. Okay, so next in the order that I see is Mingshen.
Yeah, I don't have any issue.
Great.
Thank you.
Nathaniel.
Aye.
Great. I'll go for NVIDIA and yes.
A few.
And who am I missing?
Google,
and then we've got
Renee.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, the names bounce around in the participant window.
They do.
Okay, so I think we have a formal vote then.
Fantastic, thank you. I will get this packaged up and sent off within the time scale. I think it's just adding those references and adding information about the CCC and stuff like that, really basic cosmetic stuff. So thank you so much to everyone. This is a really important piece of work. I think a couple of people found it and suggested we work on it. And great work by the TAC. Really, really pleased. Thank you so much. And thanks, Dan, for making time for it and making it all happen too. Really appreciate it.
This was a ton of work, Mike. It is a lot. I find it very difficult to move through a document the way that you did in a live setting. So I know that can be exhausting. So thank you.
I'm quite tired, but maybe it's time for a drink later on. We shall see. It's not like it's 4:45 here, so it's not. I'm getting on towards the time.
All right. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. The next co-chair is Scott Rayner from Intel, so we'll be looking to connect with Scott. I saw he already had to drop for the day. And we will be mostly talking about the blueprints documents next time. We do not have a tech talk scheduled.
Do we want to add Alec's point about what he mentioned earlier on to officially to the agenda? I can't remember what it was now. The thing I said that the ISO stuff, yeah.
If he has an update from that meeting, then yeah, he can definitely give it an update.
Okay, brilliant.
This is Eric Kibbert from Samsung. When you say the ISO stuff, you mean the ISO project in Subcommittee 27?
Yeah, which he's representing the CCC on. That doesn't mean that other people can't represent their companies, of course, and we welcome that.
Well,
but
I represent the US, so I'll be covering some of those meetings. They're meeting next week. So
yeah, very early in the morning from what he said.
Yeah, 1 a.m. for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's to stay up late, right? Rather than to get up early, I assume. So.
Excellent. Eric, are you already in connection with Alec from Microsoft?
No, I don't think so. So I chair the U.S. Mirror Committee to SC27, and I've been a lurker here. So,
but since
you
Eric, I
it,
suggest you get in touch with Alec. Probably try on the Slack channel if you're on that first.
Okay.
He's there. So if you have problems getting onto that channel, please shout. But I think it would be really helpful if you could catch up. It would be nice to know that we have two friendly voices or aligned voices
Yeah.
even.
Or feel free to email me and I can connect you to over email as well.
Yeah, of course.
And I can also tell you, at least from a U.S. perspective, we did approve a gentleman from NIST as a potential editor for the confidential computing documents. So there's probably going to be some developments coming out this week.
Good.
Coming week.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, well, any other last business before we close up? Just double checking something on my end in the last second here.
There wasn't any A or B on the agenda, was there? I don't think so. You had the agenda.
No.
Cool.
So let me go back to that slide. We eventually want to get back to or get to Nellie's paper after the other SIG has taken a crack at it. And then we've got a couple like standing topics that we need to get to. But other than that, I think that's it for today. So thank you everybody for your engagement here and contributions into the docs.